Hey fellow netizens, Plus here. The industry standard for a gacha system has been solidified by Hoyoverse ever since they launched Genshin Impact. It was simply a matter of time until someone dared to step forth with the banner of innovation. There has been a strong debate amongst the gachaverse regarding the fairness of the gacha system in Arknights Endfield. But before we continue, I'd like to remind you that the content presented here is still in its beta phase, which is still subjected to change. But please do not change the gacha animation. It encourages me to fight for democracy, to end the fields. The banner system really begged the question if Hypergriff designed it based on a grand marketing strategy or just wanted to autofilter all the tourists, leaving the gatekeepers unemployed. What sets Arknights Endfield apart from the rest of the industry is that it has 3 different character rarities instead of 2, which means it can perfectly separate the weapons and character into 2 different categories of digital slot machines. The rates to pull a 5-star operator is 8%, while the rates to pull a 6-star operator is 0.8%. One 5-star operator is guaranteed in every 10 pulls. If you have pulled 65 times into a banner, every next pull is going to increase your rate of pulling a 6-star operator by a whopping 5%, allowing you to get a guaranteed 6-star operator on the 18th pull. If you were to pull a 6-star operator, there's a 50% chance that they might spook you. So far so good, anyone in the gacha sphere including the tourists would comprehend. But here's the jumper. There's no guaranteed rate up after losing the 50-50 roll. The true guaranteed rate up appears on the 120th pull, and your pulling history won't be carried into future banners, which means for the next banner you will have to start again, from 0. This sentence single-handedly rallied the majority of the tourists, which is understandable, since it is different from the industry standard and people fear what is different. In Arknights, the guaranteed pull is at 150, and for limited events it is 300. So in short, the Endfield Gacha system is really nothing but a better Arknights banner for veterans like you and me, while being fundamentally different in comparison to gacha systems from Hoyoverse games and Wuthering Waves. But let's have a comparison for both types of banners from the worst case scenario. Let's say you want to pull for a character in both Endfield and Genshin. You are the most unlucky and unblessed person on earth, which results in losing the 50-50, so you have to roll 180 times to get the character you wanted. In Endfield, the same thing happens, and you end up rolling 120 times. Now let's talk about pulling in the long run. Because let's be honest, if you are playing a gacha game, you are probably in it for years of suffering and incremental dopamine hits. Now, in the case of industry standard, the carryover system is good. If you get unlucky in one of the banner, you can always leverage that pity into the future banners. It is a nice safety net on the surface. It comes at the cost of potentially stretching your resources further. In plain terms, it is a system designed to make us keep rolling despite knowing we don't need to. Endfield on the other hand plays by different rules. Each banner is a fresh start, which terrifies me since I fail at the start of the new year every single year. But we have to keep in mind that you are guaranteed after 120 pulls, which is a lot less in comparison with the worst case scenario of 180 pulls. Over time, this difference adds up. If you are playing for years, the difference would get bigger, as long as you know who you want to invest into and make sure to get those operators. Not to mention the pity resets with the standard gacha system, which means it is gonna be a new gamble that could end up in another 180 pulls. But maybe I'm wrong and we just love to gamble. Next we have to talk about the weapon banner that Lowlight has cooked in his backyard. The weapon banner is another piece of innovation. It is a hybrid of banner shop and weapon banner powered by Arsenal certs. You can get this currency by, you guessed it, help fighting for democracy. This is the best way to compensate for the trauma caused by all the weapon banners combined in the history of gacha games. The chance of getting the raid up weapon is 25%. Which, I have to say, it really puts the term raid up with the crown of irony. But before you rage quit on this information, let's take a closer look into this weapon banner. Weapon banners have always been the stuff of nightmares for free-to-play players, and the perfect excuse for whales to spend their 5-digit monthly salary on. But I'm here to debate that Arknights Endfield's weapon banner proves the opposite. Not because it is flawless, but because it is better than most of its competitors. First off, let's start with the base rates, because that is where the magic happens. In Endfield, the base rate for pulling any 6-star weapon is 4%. Sounds small, right? But hang on, compare that to Genshin Impact's 0.7%, and suddenly Endfield looks like the benevolent overlord of RNG. Now let's talk about getting the raid up weapon you actually want. If we account the 25% chance of a rate-up weapon, then the overall probability of pulling the weapon you want is 4% times 25%, which equals 1% per pull. In Genshin, the base rate for pulling a 5-star weapon is 0.7%, and you've got a 75% chance to get one of the two rate-ups. That means your chance of pulling the specific rate-up weapon you want is actually 0.2625% per pull. Without considering any pity systems, Enfield's rate-up weapon chance is almost 4 times higher than Genshin, and we're not even done yet. Let's factor in the pity system. Endfield guarantees a 6-star weapon on 80 pulls, which is already better than Genshin's 80 to 90 pulls for pity. And even without hitting pity, the higher base rate means you will naturally pull more 6-star weapons over time, not to mention how Endfield starts with an overall wide variety of 6-star weapons from the get-go, and the fact that you gain the arsenal certs simply by pulling in any banner. It is almost as if the 6-star weapons are given for free. That is unless you want to max out a specific weapon. I'm afraid that you might have to relive the Staff of Homeless once again, while overmaxing your operators. My final conclusion is that this gacha system could be the biggest make or break, and it all hinges at the hand of Hypergriff. To be more exact, it all depends on how generous the game will be. Aside from that, there are still some factors we don't know which might change our perception of Arknights Enfield's gacha system by a lot. It is common in Arknights that new rate-up operators get added into the standard banner when the rate-up banner is over, which begs the question if that will be the case for Endfield as well. Another aspect is the implementation of limited operator and how their banner system could look like. I do hope that we will be blessed by the power of all in Arknights Endfield. That being said, I will be back to beta testing. Here are my channel members. Please leave a like and subscribe to my channel for future Endfield content.